My name is Francisco Ortiz. I am going to be speaking about my experiences as a Latino male growing up in the public school system and where that's leading me now in my life and education. So I was born in the U.S., born in San Francisco, except I went to go live with my grandfather and grandmother in Mexico from the ages of 3.5 to 5. And then when it was time for me to start school, I came back home. So I came back to school without a word of English, like a lot of students who may be coming from different countries, and into a system where back then we had bilingual education. So I started in bilingual education I was in kindergarten, but then I got moved to first grade, and then that occurred all the way up until third grade. Then after that, I was moved into all English classes, and then I noticed that my Spanish comprehension, my Spanish speaking skills started to decline. I started to feel like I was in a sense, at the time, I felt like I was being more accepted, but at the same time, I also saw my parents' culture and our language as a deficit, or as like I could hold some sort of power over them. So, like I said earlier, I did pretty well academically, but then when I got into 7th grade, everything felt like a big zoo. I didn't feel like any of the teachers cared, so I started getting a lot of referrals. And then, come 8th grade, I got put into ELD or ESL classes, as they were called back then. And what I noticed that in those classes, it was all minorities, and it didn't seem like teachers cared. We had spitball fights. We had paper planes thrown around. I was talking to an older class, "Oh, you got Miss Peron's class? Okay, that's great. You don't have to do anything in that class. You can just talk all day. It's fun, right?" And I was like, "No, I don't want it. I don't feel well, you know?" And so then I asked my sister, it's like, "Hey, I got put into these classes. I'm not sure exactly why." She looked into it, and I guess it was just either the wrong box I checked, or it was because I got too many referrals the year prior to that. And I noticed that all the teachers when I was getting referrals, it was the Latin American students, it was the African American boys who were getting most of those referrals sent to the office. We might come back, we might not. We got Saturday detention or after school detention, whatever it was. So I felt like the teachers didn't care, so why should the students care? Then as I went into high school, my sister really advocated for me to get into this a high school that was inside of a Contra Costa College. It was called Middle College High School, but it was a very small high school. It was a very small school, but it was within a community college environment, and we had lots of guidance. We had lots of support. It was lots of kids who looked like me. And it wasn't up until my 11th grade, and I wasn't doing all that great, but it was up until about 11th grade where I had my first humanities class. It was African American humanities, and I started to see different points of view from the American Social History Project. We had the the Eurocentric view, and then we also had the African American point of view. And so we were able to make conscious decisions about the way history was being shaped. And that's when I really felt like teachers started to care again in that setting. I felt that, back in that high school experience too, I ended up having my first Latino male teacher. And that really made me feel like, hey, there's someone up there that I can look up to, someone I can speak to, and someone who really motivated me. I didn't really have that since I had my 3rd grade teacher, which was the last bilingual teacher I had, who I felt I could speak to on a daily basis, or someone that really cared about me. Why I decided to teach, I originally wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to make money to make my family proud. My mother left El Salvador with a 2nd grade education, escaping the war. My father left with a 6th grade education. He was the only boy in his family, so he had to come and make his way in the world to try and bring his family out of poverty. So what ended up happening is I just wanted to make money and make them proud. And so I talked to my dad one day. He's like, we're going to be fine, you know? Just do what you want to do. So as soon as I graduated college, I went down to Mexico. I knew there was a friend who was working at a school down there. And so I asked her if I could volunteer, and then I started to work at the school. But what I ended up finding was that I really, really liked working with kids. I really liked teaching. but I did not like the way that the school system was ran in Mexico, because it's a place where it's either haves or have-nots. And I was working at a place where it's definitely haves. Kids were being dropped off to school in the latest Audis that I had not seen here in the U.S. before, in Mercedes, and teachers were seen as a commodity. You can be bought and sold, and the students knew that. So like, this is what I really want to do, but I want to do this back home, where I feel I can make the most change, and where I feel like parents are really appreciative, like my parents were, my friends' parents were. So that's when I decided to come back and teach over here, back in the Bay Area. Let's see. I also one of the things that I noticed that really drove home was during my first year teaching was one of my students who said, "It's finally great to have my first," and this is her words, she said, "my first Mexican teacher." I guess she had gone through all K-5 without a Latino teacher, or what her experiences was, but I ended up that first year with 36 kids the very first day. I got hired the day before school started. And that year was filled with so many ups and downs. I cried myself to sleep one time, but I never felt like I never wanted to go to work. I never felt that way. Even though I was tired, even though I stayed up the night before or whatever, I still always wanted to go to work, because it felt like it's just my calling. I need to be there. So what I do to try to make it a little bit more special for my kids is we have routines every single day, and especially with students who are emergent bilinguals. We start off fresh every morning with a handshake at the door, with a smile. Every single day we have circle time. For any educators who may know what circle time is. If we have any type of issue that is going on in our classroom, or it's going outside of the classroom, we make sure we bring it into the classroom, and that it's a safe environment we can talk to. We have a classroom contract during the first week. We do a whole bunch of mini lessons I don't just have my rules posted, I make sure that they're involved in the process so that we can be held accountable. We also have in my classroom multicultural leveled text sets. I'll try to explain what that means. Is that in my classroom, I've had a reading range from the end of first grade, students who can read independently from the end of first grade, to kids who ended up reading at an 11th grade level. So the standardized curriculum that is adopted by the school board doesn't fit well for that huge range of students. So you have to be able to find different texts at different levels so that they can access it, and so that they can be motivated to read independently. Because just those single little abridged stories and all of the open chord or the new adoptions that are coming out don't get kids excited. They don't see themselves in the story, so they don't seem to care. So what I do is I do culturally relevant literature. We do stories called Breaking Through. We've read The Circuit. We've read One Crazy Summer, which actually takes place here in Oakland with the Black Panther Party movement in 1960s. Kids really like that story. We also read Freak the Mighty, which is a story about a special needs student who makes friends with another student who is always picked on, but the camaraderie and their friendship gets them through their life in school. Something that I also try to do with my students is to have a lot of different methods for them to show what they've learned. Rather than just taking the test, they can either build a diagram, they can do an oral retelling, they can do different types of options, they can do a game board of what this entire novel was about, so at least I know that they don't just need to be writing a paper or take a test with bubbles so that to show me what they know. Anything else that I have missed?
You had 50 kids sign up for your class.
Oh. So I'm entering my third year, and I think I'm making a difference, at least with the community and with the students, because I did have 50 requests to be in my classroom this year. So about... And tomorrow is the first day of school, and I'm really excited to go back in and hopefully impact and have these kids passionate about learning, because I think that's the biggest hurdle for me. At least it was, I didn't feel like anyone cared about me, so I didn't feel like I needed to learn. And I know I've done that with a bunch of kids. Some kids I can reach more than others, and yeah, I hope that we can have a more representative teaching force of the kids that we're serving, because that's what I'm finishing up my master's work right now, where our teaching force has been unchanged, where we have a monocultural, monolingual, middle-class background, where teachers who come from a middle-class background who really don't understand our children. So if we can get more teachers who are within our own neighborhoods to understand our kids a little bit better, I think we see a big jump in our students, not only academic learning, but just in their overall social adaptation and zeal for education and life.